Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. At 2:30 a.m., a buzz jolts Lucas Pierce awake. His security cameras show the HOA president and her goons trespassing on his private beach. What begins as an absurd midnight confrontation spirals into a full-blown war over property power and one man's right to say, no. It was 2:30 in the godforsaken morning when my phone buzzed with an alert from the security system. I blinked at the glowing screen, groggy and disoriented, expecting maybe a raccoon or a wandering coyote tripping the infrared sensors by the beach fence. But when I checked the feed from the front gate, my sleep was ripped away in an instant. There they were, 3 people standing under the harsh glare of the gate floodlight, casting long shadows on my driveway. 2 men in HOA-branded polo shirts, and in the middle, Karen Lingrave, the president of the Seabreeze Dunes Homeowners Association, arms, crossed an expression as sour as a lemon in vinegar. She was looking straight into the camera like it was her sworn enemy. I sat up, swung my legs over the side of the bed, and muttered something that would have gotten me fined if I lived in her HOA. My house, a 3-acre waterfront villa, was on private land, not under HOA jurisdiction, never had been. But that hadn't stopped Karen from acting like she ruled the coastline. As I threw on a robe and grabbed the heavy-duty flashlight, my security monitor pinged again. The trio was no longer at the gate. They were walking up my driveway. I toggled the secondary feed. They had opened the outer pedestrian gate using some sort of generic key. Cheap lock, my mistake. Still, it was trespassing. They were at my door now. I hit record on my porch camera, clipped my holstered Sig Sauer to my belt beneath the robe. Never hurts to be legally over-prepared, and stepped outside. The ocean wind met me with its usual salt and chill. I clicked on the flashlight, the beam snapping into Karen's face. She didn't even blink. "Mr. Pierce," she barked, like this was a military checkpoint and not my literal front step. "You are required to surrender the keys to your beach gate." I raised an eyebrow. "Pardon?" Karen gestured to one of the men. He stepped forward with a clipboard like we were finalizing escrow at 3 in the morning. The Seabreeze Dunes HOA board voted unanimously this week to designate your beach access point as a community resource. I stared. "You came to my house at 2:30 in the damn morning to steal my property." "It's not stealing," Karen snapped. "It's integration. The beach is a natural shared asset. It's exclusionary for you to deny the community access. And under Article 6 of the Coastal Ordinance Code—" "Stop," I said, cutting her off. 1, you're quoting out of context. I've argued that ordinance in court. 2, you're not on my HOA. 3, this land has never been included in your HOA. 4, and most importantly, I pointed to the sign bolted to my porch post. "Private beach. Trespassers will be prosecuted." "Then we'll call the police," Karen huffed. "You can't intimidate us with—" "No need," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'm calling them myself." That finally rattled them. The man with the clipboard shifted uneasily. The other looked back toward the driveway. Karen, of course, stood her ground like she was posing for a magazine cover titled Authoritarian Weekly. As I gave my address to dispatch and explained that 3 people had entered my property uninvited and were demanding keys to my private beach, I noticed Karen stiffen. She didn't move, but her expression soured even further. "Dispatch would like me to remain calm," I said, keeping my voice steady, "and let the officers handle the trespassers. So, why don't you go wait at the gate, and I'll let them escort you out themselves." "You don't understand what you're starting," Karen said, her voice cold now. "You're not above the community." "I'm not in the community," I corrected. The sound of distant sirens began to rise. Karen's goons backed off first, muttering something about miscommunication. Karen followed slower, as if waiting for some last-minute miracle to arrive in a squad car. The cops arrived 6 minutes later. I explained everything, showed the footage, security logs, entry data. One of the officers recognized Karen instantly and rolled his eyes before she even started talking. They made her sign a statement, then warned her that any further attempts to access my property without permission would result in criminal charges. She didn't argue, but as she stepped back through my gate, she hissed one last thing, just loud enough for the microphone to catch. "This isn't over." She was right about that, but not in the way she thought. The morning sun hadn't even cleared the horizon when the first letter arrived. I was sipping black coffee on the porch, still replaying the insanity of the night before in my head, when a courier van rolled up my driveway like it had every right in the world to be there. The guy handed me a heavy envelope marked with the Sea Breeze Dunes HOA logo, faux gold seal, unnecessarily thick paper, the usual theater. Inside was a multi-page official notice of community integration. According to their fantasy novel, the HOA board had held a binding vote to designate my beach as a shared natural resource due to long-standing informal community access. They cited obscure land use theories and coastal ordinances, most of which were either irrelevant or flat-out misquoted. Then came the part that actually made me laugh. They were inviting me to a general membership meeting next Tuesday as an interim member subject to formal annexation. They had included a voting proxy form, a proposed dues schedule, and a color-coded access plan showing a walking path straight through my living room. I scanned the packet, already preparing my response in my head, and fired off a message to my lawyer, Claire. She was a pit bull in heels and had been handling real estate disputes long enough to know that this kind of overreach was a lawsuit waiting to happen. Her reply came 15 minutes later. "This is delusional. Send me everything. We'll draft a cease and desist within the hour." And we did. By noon, every member of the Sea Breeze Dunes HOA board had a PDF in their inbox titled Formal Rejection and Legal Warning Regarding Encroachment Attempt. It included the original deed history of my land, clearly stating it was never part of any. HOA, surveyor's maps from the county registrar, copies of local zoning codes explicitly protecting private beach access, and a very polite but direct promise to pursue litigation if they made another move. I thought that might shut them up, but then the flyers started appearing. By evening, laminated posters had been duct-taped to the community mailboxes and light poles. Private beach, us elitism. Is this the neighborhood we want? With a blurry photo of my beach gate below. The word gated was underlined 3 times in red. One flyer even had a drawing of a padlock and some cartoon children crying on the outside of a fence. Subtle. I drove through the neighborhood just after dusk, snapping photos of the signs, making sure to document the HOA's campaign. I spotted Karen herself across the street from the tennis courts, supervising a teenager as he taped up another flyer. When she saw me, she gave a little wave, like we were sharing a friendly debate, not locked in a territorial standoff. That night, I got an email from someone named Bill Rafferty. Turns out he was a neighbor 3 houses down from the HOA clubhouse. An older guy, retired naval officer. He said he was appalled by what was going on and wanted to make it clear. Not everyone supported Karen's beach crusade. He offered to meet and share some background on how things really work around here. I accepted. Something told me this wasn't just Karen being nuts. There was something deeper brewing behind those laminated signs and HOA emails. And I wasn't going to let it fester. Saturday morning started too quietly. For a beachside neighborhood with overly active retirees and HOA fanatics, silence usually meant one of 2 things. Either a hurricane was coming or someone was plotting something truly idiotic. It turned out to be the latter. At around 9:15, I was reviewing case notes on my patio when I noticed a flicker on the motion camera feed for the beach gate. I tapped the screen and froze. The lock on the outer fence, the one I'd replaced after the last fiasco, was lying in the sand, cut clean through. A chunk of chain was still dangling from the latch like some mutilated limb. Then the camera panned. A group of people, at least a dozen, were setting up pop-up tents and folding chairs directly on my beach. One guy was wheeling in a large smoker grill. A woman in yoga pants was spreading out a picnic blanket disturbingly close to my fire pit. There were coolers, umbrellas, even Bluetooth speakers already playing Jimmy Buffett. Right in the center of it all, in a wide-brimmed sun hat and a beach caftan that looked like it had eaten 3 other caftans, stood Karen. I stormed down from the patio, unlocking the heavy gate leading to the sand. The second I stepped out, she turned around with a gleam of triumph in her eye, like she'd just landed Normandy. "Good morning, mister." "Pierce," she called out, raising a plastic mimosa cup. "Lovely day for a community gathering, don't you think?" I didn't answer. I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Everyone on this property," I said loudly, "is trespassing. You have 60 seconds to leave before I call the sheriff." Karen smirked. "Actually, we voted on this last night. Emergency HOA meeting. It's official. This beach is now designated a common use zone under Seabreeze Dunes ordinances. You can't vote your way onto private property, I snapped. She took a step closer, waving a crumpled document. We have a signed community petition, 36 signatures. That gives us standing. It gives you nothing but a lawsuit, I said. And by the way, I pointed to the steel gate. Cutting a lock is destruction of property. That's a felony. Karen shrugged. Oh, I don't know who did that. Must have been worn out. Salt air does funny things to metal. I didn't argue. I dialed the sheriff. While I waited, a man from the HOA began setting up cornhole boards near the shoreline, whistling like this was some neighborhood luau and not a full-on illegal invasion. Someone else pulled out a portable speaker and started blasting Sweet Caroline. It was surreal. The deputies arrived within 20 minutes. 2 cruisers, thankfully. One of the officers recognized me from the 2:30 a.m. call earlier in the week. I explained the situation calmly, showed the cut lock, the property line markers, the recorded footage. Karen tried her spiel, community votes, historical access, fairness, but the deputies weren't buying it. One of them, Officer DeWitt, asked her point blank, "Do you own any part of this parcel?" When she said no, he turned to the group and announced, "This is private land. You're trespassing. If you don't leave now, you'll be cited and possibly arrested." The grill went off. People began packing up quickly. Some of them looked genuinely confused, like they hadn't realized they were part of a siege. A few muttered apologies. Karen, of course, looked personally offended by the entire notion of consequences. As they cleared out, one of the HOA volunteers muttered to her, "Maybe we went too far." Karen hissed back, "We haven't gone far enough." After the crowd left, I took detailed photos of the damaged gate, trampled sand, and scorch marks near the fire pit where someone had apparently dumped charcoal. I forwarded everything to Claire with the subject line, "Next Exhibit." By sundown, I'd had a new steel fence installed with internal reinforcements, magnetic locks, and remote alarms. I also added 2 additional cameras, one facing the neighborhood and another fixed directly on the gate. If they wanted to play dirty, I was bringing the rulebook and the penalties. That night, I received a text from Bill Rafferty. They're planning more. She's talking about filing for beach access through the county. We should talk. He wasn't wrong. I had a feeling the real siege hadn't even started yet. I met Bill Rafferty the next morning at his place. A weather-worn coastal cottage with a pristine flagpole, navy plaques on the walls, and the faint smell of old cigars. He poured us both black coffee strong enough to resuscitate a corpse and got straight to the point. "Karen's trying to rewrite history," he said, sliding a manila folder across the table. "This is what she filed with the county land office on Friday." I opened the folder and felt my stomach tighten. Inside was a petition from the Seabreeze Dunes HOA, requesting that the county reassess the ownership boundaries along the shoreline, claiming historic community usage. They cited decades of alleged open access, falsely claiming the prior owner of my property had allowed public use, and that such use established community rights. There were affidavits attached, all from HOA board members or their spouses, conveniently dated the day after the beach BBQ invasion. One of the claims even alleged that a neighborhood children's program had used my beach for summer activities since 2006. Never mind that the prior owner died in 2004 and the lot sat vacant for 5 years. "This is an orchestrated land grab," I muttered. Bill nodded. "She's done this before, just never with beachfront. Usually it's little things. Fences, garden setbacks, shared alleys. This is her crowning move. If she pulls this off, your land won't be next. It'll be precedent." I thanked him, scanned and emailed everything to Claire, and told Bill to keep an ear to the ground. Then I spent the rest of the afternoon on the phone. Zoning attorneys, a private land surveyor, a title historian. If they wanted to challenge my deed, I was going to bury them in documentation. That evening, I received a certified letter from the Seabreeze Dunes legal team, or rather, from some strip mall law office they'd hired. It claimed I was obstructing community access, violating coastal preservation doctrines, and hinted at a forthcoming lawsuit seeking judicial declaration of shared access rights. They even requested that I refrain from altering or fortifying the beach entrance gate, as it was now subject to contested ownership. I laughed. Then I forwarded it to Claire with one line, "They're drunk on HOA punch." Claire responded 10 minutes later, "We're filing a temporary restraining order first thing tomorrow. Also preparing a suit for tortious interference, trespass, and property damage. Let's put them on defense. By noon the next day, she had filed in county court and secured a temporary injunction. The HOA was now legally barred from making any further claims or alterations related to my land until the matter was settled. The court scheduled a preliminary hearing within 2 weeks. Claire's filing included all the video footage, the gate-cutting evidence, and screenshots of Karen's glorious BBQ coup. To celebrate, I walked down to the beach with a cold beer and stood near the newly reinforced gate. The sun was setting, the surf was calm, and for the first time in a week, I felt something close to peace. Until I spotted a camera drone buzzing about 10 feet above my head. It hovered for a few seconds, then zipped away over the dunes and back toward the HOA's clubhouse. I didn't need to guess who sent it, but I did make a note to pick up a signal jammer and update my security protocols. Karen had tried official letters, public shame, trespassing, and now a damn Air Force. This wasn't just about a beach anymore. She wanted to prove that no one could say no to her. That was her mistake. The county injunction slowed Karen down, but it didn't stop her. That kind of personality doesn't break with a warning. It doubles down. And she did, with an almost religious fervor. By midweek, I started hearing from neighbors, not the friendly kind. People I barely knew suddenly had opinions. A man walking his golden retriever past my gate muttered, "Selfish bastard," loud enough for me to hear. Someone left a note in my mailbox that read, "You can't own nature, fascist." Charming. I knew this wasn't spontaneous. Karen had shifted tactics. If she couldn't win in court yet, she'd win through pressure, through social engineering, and she knew just where to apply it. One neighbor, an elderly woman named Iris, came to me in tears. She'd refused to sign Karen's beach access petition, and now, suddenly, she was getting HOA compliance inspections for her mailbox paint and hedge height. Same with the Mitchells down the street. They'd once had a party Karen wasn't invited to. Now their fence violated visual continuity standards. I started keeping a list. It grew fast. Bill confirmed it. She's using the HOA like a personal mafia. That Friday night, I returned from a late dinner in town to find the wires to my Beachgate sensors cut clean, the motion camera unplugged, and a smear of red spray paint across my fence. Open access or else. I stood there for a moment, just staring at the words in the moonlight. This wasn't amateur graffiti. This was a message. The gate had been locked, but someone had clearly tried to pry it open. There were scratches around the latch, boot prints in the sand. I reported the vandalism. The deputy who came out was sympathetic, but shrugged. Without footage, it's your word against the dark. HOA's lawyer will say it was teens, probably. Claire was less diplomatic. We file Monday. We escalate. No more warnings. They just handed us a civil harassment claim and a criminal complaint. I nodded. Let's hit back hard. That weekend, I upgraded every square foot of the perimeter. Installed 4 new 4K security cameras, floodlights with motion tracking, and a private security patrol out of Sarasota. Off-duty cops with body cams and 0 patience. But Karen wasn't finished. Monday morning, I received a letter. This time not from the HOA, but from the county building department. It was an anonymous tip complaint alleging that my security lighting was out of code, that my patio deck extension lacked proper permits, and that I had unpermitted beach fencing. I invited the inspector over myself. When he arrived, I gave him fresh coffee and a binder full of stamped permits going back 10 years. He flipped through it and shook his head. "Mr. Pierce, this is one of the cleanest properties I've seen this year. Whoever filed this, they're reaching." As he left, I asked, "Did they file any others recently?" He smiled thinly. "Half the street. HOA's been busy." That night, I sat down with Claire and we finalized our counteroffensive. A full civil suit against Karen Lingrave and Seabreeze Dunes HOA, citing trespassing, property damage, harassment, attempted coercion of neighbors, malicious use of HOA authority, and willful abuse of public reporting systems. And as a cherry on top, we were asking for a full forensic audit of the HOA's internal finances. Karen had just turned her petty crusade into a matter of fraud, and she'd chosen the wrong ex-prosecutor to spar with. The day after we filed suit, things went from absurd to unhinged. Karen didn't respond directly. No statement, no email, no lawyer letterhead denial. Instead, she organized a community beach access walk, scheduled for Saturday morning, complete with flyers, refreshments, and, according to one particularly delusional Facebook post, a peaceful demonstration to reclaim what belongs to all of us. Bill forwarded the flyer to me with the subject line, "They're going full cult." I spent the next 2 days prepping. Not for violence. I still held out some hope that someone on the HOA board had sense enough to stop her, but for exposure. I coordinated with Claire to ensure that we had a restraining order modification ready to go if anyone stepped foot past my property line. We alerted the sheriff's office in advance. I even rented a drone of my own this time. Better resolution, full flight path logging, time-stamped footage. If they wanted this on the record, I'd deliver it in high definition. Saturday came. By 9:30, about 25 people were gathered outside my reinforced beach gate. Most were residents. Some, I suspected, had no idea what was actually going on. There were kids holding signs like "Beaches are for everyone" and "Stop the fence." They looked like they'd rather be watching cartoons. And then Karen arrived. She walked up like she was leading a parade. Wide-brimmed hat, a megaphone slung under one arm, HOA clipboard under the other. She addressed the crowd with performative concern, talking about access injustice, neighborhood tradition, and rich newcomers trying to wall off the coast. I stepped outside, staying just behind my inner gate, camera rolling. Karen turned to me, smiling like we were co-hosting a bake sale. "Mr. Pierce, we'd like to peacefully enter the beach today, as neighbors. This is our opportunity to show we can all coexist." I replied just loud enough for the crowd and the camera to catch it. "This is private property. That gate is the legal boundary. You cross it, you trespass." Karen looked at the crowd. "See, folks, that's the kind of hostility we're dealing with." The crowd murmured. A few people nodded, but one man, mid-40s in board shorts and flip-flops, stepped forward. "Karen, I looked up the plat map online. His lot isn't in the HOA. Never was." She shot him a look like he'd farted in church. Still, she pressed forward. Literally. She raised the megaphone and began chanting, "Whose beach? Our beach. Whose beach? Our beach." Some people joined in. Others started to back away, sensing it had gone off the rails. Karen motioned to her clipboard guy. He stepped up to the gate, reached for the latch. What he didn't realize was that I had installed a magnetic sensor alarm the day before. The moment his hand touched the gate, a high-pitched siren blared from 2 hidden speakers. Flashing lights kicked on from under the eaves. My drone swept overhead, catching the startled faces from 50 feet up. The man leapt back, hands up. Karen tried to recover, barking something about dramatics and overreaction. Then 2 sheriff's deputies pulled up, right on cue. The crowd went silent. I calmly walked over, greeted the officers, showed them the restraining order and the new footage. Karen began arguing, saying it was a peaceful protest, that we never crossed the line, and he's just trying to criminalize community spirit. One of the deputies interrupted her. "Ma'am, did you authorize anyone to touch that gate?" She hesitated, then lied. "No." Too bad the camera footage was already on my tablet, with a time-stamped close-up of clipboard guy's hand gripping the latch. The deputy sighed, turned to the man. "Sir, I'm citing you for attempted trespass. You'll receive a court summons." The man blinked like he'd just woken up in a country he didn't recognize. I didn't even open it." "Still a violation," the deputy said. "You were warned." Karen fumed. The crowd began to thin. A few people apologized quietly as they left. The event ended not with chance, but with Karen furiously texting from the passenger seat of her Lexus as it peeled away. That evening, Claire called me, ecstatic. "We'll use this in the main case," she said. "Everything they've done just reinforced our claims. Public pressure, property damage, now incitement. This isn't just HOA overreach anymore. It's harassment backed by organized action." And by Monday morning, we had new footage, new witness statements, and a new filing ready to go. Karen had staged a protest, but all she'd really done was give us more ammunition. By Tuesday, it was clear Karen wasn't sleeping much. Or if she was dreaming up new ways to drag herself and everyone around her deeper into this swamp of entitlement. Her latest move: a sudden motion filed by the HOA's legal counsel to request a preliminary injunction. Their claim, my refusal to provide beach access was causing emotional distress to the community, disrupting neighborhood harmony, and infringing upon shared historical customs. Yes, you read that right. Shared historical customs. Claire read it twice, then looked up. This sounds like they're describing a pagan solstice ritual, not someone's private backyard. The motion came attached with two so-called declarations from residents, heavily biased, clearly templated, and possibly coerced. One claimed that for decades, residents had walked this beach without interference. Another described the fence as a symbol of division, not safety. We countered hard. Claire filed our own declaration, attaching survey maps showing the property boundary had never included HOA jurisdiction, historical sale documents proving the land was always separate, a notarized letter from the prior owner, a retired judge confirming he'd posted no trespassing signs 20 years ago, and, crucially, the sheriff's report from the protest-turned-fiasco. But we weren't done. With my contacts from the DA's office, I got wind of something even more damning. Karen had begun retroactively altering HOA records. Claire filed a motion for a forensic review of their internal communications. We suspected, correctly, that she had edited meeting minutes to make it appear the HOA had discussed beach access years prior. It was fraud, plain and simple. In the meantime, pressure in the neighborhood escalated. My security team stopped two people trying to slip onto the beach from the dunes under cover of darkness. We caught another group launching a drone, attempting to film inside my home from a distance. I submitted all footage to the sheriff. I wasn't taking any chances. Then, on Thursday morning, I found something in my mailbox that turned my stomach. A dead fish wrapped in a flyer for Karen's HOA town hall. No note, just slime and intent. Claire insisted we report it. The responding deputy didn't even blink. "You've become a target. This is organized harassment now, Mr. Pierce." That same day, Bill called me from a closed-door HOA board meeting. He wasn't supposed to leak anything, but I guess betrayal is contagious. "She's trying to push a vote," he said, "to expand HOA jurisdiction via emergency measure. The idea is to retroactively clarify that the beach was always within our conceptual footprint." Her words, not mine. I asked how it was going. "She's got 3 votes locked, needs 5. The rest are wavering. I'm stalling." That was the push I needed. I spent the next 48 hours doing what I did best, building a case. I contacted the former land developer who parceled out the lots before the HOA ever formed, the county clerk, who confirmed the beach had never been under community zoning, a real estate attorney who once defended another homeowner in the next county from a similar HOA stunt, and won a $300K settlement. On Friday, we delivered all of it to court. Claire filed for a restraining order against further HOA motions affecting my property until the main case was resolved. And just in time. Because that night, my security team intercepted a group of 6, flashlights, bolt cutters, and a cooler of drinks, trying to sneak in for a beach night on my land. This time, we didn't just call the sheriff. We pressed full charges. 4 were arrested, 2 were minors and released to parents. 1 turned out to be Karen's own nephew visiting from Tampa. The next morning, Karen showed up outside my gate again. No HOA shirt, no megaphone, just her, seething. "You've made this war," she spat through the bars. I didn't flinch. "No, Karen, I'm just finishing it." By the time Monday morning rolled around, Karen was unraveling, but that didn't mean she was slowing down. Quite the opposite. When I arrived at the courthouse with Claire, we were greeted by something out of a political circus. Karen had orchestrated a full-on press stunt on the courthouse steps, complete with local reporters, a pre-written statement, and a new slogan slapped across a printed banner. "Unity through access. Take back our shore." It was surreal. She actually declared that she was fighting for the moral soul of the neighborhood. I stood in the background with Claire, watching the spectacle, resisting the urge to laugh. If she had poured half this energy into doing her actual job, the HOA might have stayed solvent. But theatrics don't change facts. Once inside, the judge wasn't interested in Karen's community speeches, only in evidence. And we brought plenty. Claire presented the complete forensic audit. Email was showing Karen directly edited HOA records, timestamps proving the fake meeting minutes had been fabricated just 2 weeks prior, and even a forwarded message where she told another board member, "If we play it right, we can absorb the beach permanently. He can't fight all of us." The courtroom shifted audibly after that one. Then came the kicker, a sworn deposition from the HOA's former treasurer, who admitted Karen had diverted over $15,000 of HOA funds to pay private contractors, for flyers, for legal filings, and even for the fence demolition crew, who broke my gate weeks earlier. The treasurer confessed she'd felt pressured and didn't know it was illegal until everything spiraled. Karen's lawyer went pale, then asked for a recess. The judge refused. Instead, she issued a temporary freeze on all HOA spending, barred the board from taking any actions regarding my land, and scheduled a full evidentiary hearing within 10 days. And Karen, she was served with a formal criminal complaint for fraudulent alteration of official documents, criminal trespass by proxy for organizing the illegal beach parties, misuse of HOA funds, conspiracy to commit civil rights violations. She was visibly shaking when the bailiff handed her the envelope, but even then she tried to spin it. "I'm being persecuted for representing my community," she yelled, pointing toward the press still waiting outside. "This is retaliation. He's using his legal background to silence us." The judge slammed her gavel. "One more word, and you'll be held in contempt." Karen shut up. On the way out, Claire whispered, "This is textbook." She pushed too hard and touched the third rail. Money, fraud, and personal threats. The court's not going to let this slide. That evening, I received an anonymous tip. Someone, possibly one of the disillusioned board members, had sent me a flash drive in a padded envelope. No return address, just a sticky note with 2 words. "You'll need this." On it, recordings from 3 HOA internal Zoom meetings. All recent, all damning. One featured Karen instructing board members to keep the pressure on him and stage more visible action so he feels isolated. Another had her bragging that even if she lost in court, the public wouldn't side with a guy who hoarded the beach. Their final clip showed a plan to forge community petitions with names copied from an old holiday list. I forwarded everything to Claire. She didn't even respond with words, just sent back a single fire emoji. 2 days later, the district attorney's office opened a formal investigation into the HOA's operations. Not just Karen, the entire board was now under scrutiny. Wire fraud, misuse of funds, attempted encroachment, the list kept growing. At that point, I didn't just want peace, I wanted precedent. I wanted every HOA thug who thought they could bully someone out of their rights to remember my name and my fence. I woke up Friday morning to a ping from my motion detector app. At 5:47 a.m., someone had slipped a letter through my gate. No envelope, just a single printed page in shaky, desperate font. "We don't want this fight. Karen doesn't speak for all of us. Please don't burn the whole neighborhood down with her." It wasn't signed. I forwarded the image to Claire, who replied, "Looks like rats leaving a sinking ship." That same afternoon, I received formal notice. The HOA's vice president and secretary had both resigned, effective immediately. One of them, Bill, called me directly. "She's done, man. No one's backing her now. The hearing next week is just a formality at this point." "Not for me," I said. It's a line in the sand. Karen, though, had one last stunt to play. And, of course, it was pathetic and delusional in equal measure. On Sunday afternoon, while I was checking the perimeter fence with my contractor, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Lucas," she yelled from the edge of the dunes. "I'm offering a settlement." She was holding a manila folder, striding toward the gate in full confidence like this was some boardroom negotiation. I turned on the camera in my glasses. "You're trespassing," I warned. "No, I'm standing on the edge of the community buffer zone." "There is no buffer zone. You're a foot onto my land." She smirked and slid the folder through a crack in the gate. Inside was a ridiculous draft. I would permit HOA access to the beach on weekends. In return, she'd publicly withdraw civil claims, and the HOA would cease all community action. I nearly laughed. Instead, I handed it to Claire, who filed it immediately with the court under the label Unsolicited Harassment Exhibit C. The final week before the evidentiary hearing was pure chaos for Karen. The local press had picked up the story, especially the part about the misused HOA funds and dead fish message. Headlines like "Beach War in Manatee County" and "Ex-Prosecutor Battles HOA Tyranny" spread fast. Neighbors who had once sided with her started scrubbing their yards clean of HOA flyers, taking down posters, even posting their own private property no HOA signs. For once, my little fortress didn't look so out of place. Meanwhile, my team was working overtime. We had the Zoom recordings, the internal emails, the altered documents, the forensic audits, and now an audio clip from a town hall where Karen admitted, quote, "We can't let this guy win, or we'll lose control of the narrative. Control of the narrative. That was all this ever was for her. Power. The final nail came just 2 days before the hearing. The sheriff's office notified Claire that a warrant for Karen's arrest had been approved. Multiple felony counts, fraud, document tampering, criminal trespass, and obstruction. We agreed not to publicize it early. We wanted her to show up in court thinking she still had a chance. And she did. That morning, she strutted into the courtroom in a bright coral jacket like it was a brunch panel. Her attorney looked grim. The judge was expressionless. Claire stood. "Your Honor, we respectfully request that you execute the warrant immediately." Ms. Lingrave has been informed. She has ignored previous notice. She is in violation of restraining orders and subject to multiple charges. The judge nodded once. The bailiff approached. Karen's face froze. "Wait, what is this? This isn't procedure." But it was. She was handcuffed, read her rights, and led out of the courtroom while still holding her folder of community proposals. The room was dead silent, except for me. I didn't smile, but I didn't look away either. The courthouse was strangely quiet after Karen's arrest. No chants, no HOA slogans, no reporters with cameras swarming the parking lot. Just silence and a lingering smell of someone else's desperation. The formal hearing still proceeded without her. Her defense lawyer requested a delay, citing emotional distress and unexpected circumstances. The judge denied it flatly. The court had waited long enough. Claire walked the judge through our final presentation. Drone photos of the fence damage, GPS metadata showing when the locks were cut, Zoom transcripts with Karen strategizing how to absorb the beach, and sworn statements from 5 former HOA members who testified that she had lied about my land status from the beginning. One of them, Bill, even added, "She told us that as long as we acted as a unit, no judge would side against a whole community." Turns out the law still sides with facts. The judge ruled swiftly. All claims made by HOA Seabreeze Dunes against me were declared null, retaliatory, and baseless. Furthermore, the HOA itself was found to be in violation of state nonprofit governance laws and would be dissolved effective immediately pending criminal proceedings. Karen, meanwhile, faced 7 felony charges. When her home was searched, they found more doctored petitions, an illegal copy of my land deed in a folder labeled Strategy, and an HOA ledger doctored to hide over $30,000 in personal use, including campaign t-shirts, BBQ rentals, and yes, even the dead fish delivery. The state offered her a deal, plead guilty to fraud and trespass, and do 5 years minimum. She refused, called it a witch hunt, claimed I had weaponized the legal system. 2 weeks later, she was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 9 years in state prison without early release. Her mugshot made the evening news. That coral jacket. Not included. Her remaining property was seized to pay restitution to both the HOA's former members and me. I acquired the defunct HOA office at auction for $1,000, a dusty prefab building that still had a corkboard full of community goals and a forgotten coffee pot that looked like it hadn't been washed since the Bush administration. I gutted it. Now it's a small, sleek legal aid center I call Pro-Private, dedicated to defending property owners harassed by overreaching HOA boards. Claire helped me set it up pro bono. Bill volunteers once a week. And every time someone walks through that door with a stack of angry letters or a bogus citation, I remind them, you're not alone. As for my beach, I replaced the gate with a reinforced stainless steel structure, linked to license plate readers and a 2-way intercom. The sign on it reads, "Private beach, not for HOA Karens. Trespassers will be recorded, prosecuted, and shamed." Sometimes I walk the shoreline at sunset, coffee in hand, fence at my back. The tide rolls in, the air stays quiet, and I think, let them try again. I dare them.